stay calm. All the emergency responders are on top of the game, and they're working very hard to ensure that this is reduced to the barest minimum.
Okay, tell us, any casualty figure?
We've got some casualties. We can't confirm the exact numbers, but with time we'll let you know.
Okay.
As at press time, rescue efforts were still ongoing, and to a large extent, the raging fire has subsided.
It's been a tough day in Abule Ado, Amuwa in local government, Lagos State, where reports says explosion rocked several buildings in the community where several people lost their lives, vehicles and several damages were done. And from report that we got from authorities, especially the Commissioner of Police, Lagos State, 13 people, as we speak, lost their lives and several others recuperating in the hospital. From Abule Ado community in Amuwa in local government, Lagos State, Olushola John Jacobs, reporting for Arise News.
I have set up Abule Ado Soba Emergency Relief Fund. I have set that up, and it's a 2 billion naira relief fund. And the state government will immediately be putting 250 million naira in that fund. And overnight, I have gotten 3 banks to open accounts for that fund. And what are we trying to achieve? This is certainly beyond what the state government can undertake on its own. This is beyond what the government, be it at the national or state, can also overtake at its own. So I'm aware that some of my fellow governors have called, and I've received phone calls from the private sector. And so what this fund will do is to give everybody the opportunity to be part of it and to be able to donate into it.
I have 3 persons in the house. So, but when the church, when we had a loud explosion, and nothing after the explosion, there was thick smoke and fire followed.
Incident started around 8 o'clock in the morning. My men are the first responders here.
Opposite the
New Cif Eco Refill, 10 times concentrated cleaning power. Now you can reuse your spray bottle. Cif Eco Refill. Hello, beautiful.
Double your pleasure with Magnum Double Caramel. Magnum, true to pleasure.
You've always taken care of your family. But what's going to happen when you're gone? With Legal & General's Over 50s life insurance, you can leave your loved ones a cash sum gift or help towards funeral costs. With full cover after 1 year. From £5 a month depending on your age. Guaranteed acceptance for 50 to 80-year-olds. No medical. 100% of claims paid. And a £100 M&S gift card after you take out cover. Find out more at legalandgeneral.com/TV or call us free on 0800 048 2012. That's 0800 048 2012.
Heard about GoDaddy websites plus marketing? Build a website for your business and get found online. GoDaddy.
Behind me right now, that brown building, that blue roof building, is called Bethlehem Girls Secondary School.
Yeah, not good at all. Not good. It's not a very good incident.
Okay.
Our guys are on ground.
It's a massive damage. It's a massive damage.
It's a lot of damage.
And have to be deploy about 4 more appliances to this place.
As government, we will investigate the root cause and make it public.
At this point in time, for us to be experiencing this in Lagos State, I can't hold my hands. Well, it won't be at this point we'll be discussing that. We need to.
Oh God. Hello. Olushola, please.
Hello.
Olushola, please stay safe. As much as we want to cover this, disaster in Lagos this morning, as much as possible, we hope that you can stay safe.
Welcome back to the Global Business Report. We've got live cameras, I believe, live from the scene of the explosion that happened at Amoadofin in Festac, where so far we've seen about 15 lives lost. I believe our Arise TV correspondents are on the ground there taking account of the rescue situation. We're also discussing the 2 billion naira fund that Governor Sanwo-Olu has set up for relief efforts. The scale of the damage is still being assessed with regards to how much in losses that have been accounted for. It's a pretty tragic situation, but Arise TV is, of course, on the ground in Amoadofin, in Festac, taking account of what's going on there. We move now to the U.S. Fed. The U.S. Federal Reserve has taken some massive emergency actions last night to try to help the U.S. economy withstand the coronavirus by slashing its benchmark interest rate to near zero, saying it would buy about $700 billion in Treasury bills and mortgage bonds. The surprise announcement signaled the Fed's rising concern that the viral outbreak would depress economic growth in coming months, likely causing a recession, and that it was poised to do whatever it could to counter the risks. Jerome Powell, the chair of the U.S. Federal Reserve, expressed the reason for the move. Shortly after the announcement, President Trump led the daily White House task force briefing and praised the Fed for their actions.
Beautiful day outside. And I think we have some great things to talk about. I'll start by discussing the Federal Reserve. As you know, it just happened minutes ago, but to me it makes me very happy. And I want to congratulate the Federal Reserve. For starters, they've lowered the Fed rate from what it was, which was 1 to 1.25, and it's been lowered down to 0 to 0.25 or 0.25. So it's 0 to 0.25. That's a big difference. It's quite a bit, about a point. And in addition, very importantly, the Federal Reserve is going to be purchasing $500 billion of treasuries and $200 billion of mortgage-backed securities, and that number can increase. But they're going to start with that, and that's really good news. It's really great for our country. It's something that we're very happy. I have to say this. I'm very happy. And they did it in one step. They didn't do it in 4 steps over a long period of time. They did it in one step. And I think that people in the market should be very thrilled. And that brings us, we're the strongest country in the world by far, financially and every other way. And that brings us in line with what other countries are.
All right, still in the passed, the U.S. House of Representatives overwhelmingly passed a bill that would provide free testing and paid sick leave. The bill aims to limit the economic damage and to help families, middle-income and blue-collar workers cope with the situation. Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin, in an interview, said that the price tag for the stimulus package was yet to be fully determined, but is likely to be quite significant. Also, South Africa's benchmark stock index plummeted to the lowest in more than 6 years after President Cyril Ramaphosa's declaration of a national state of disaster over the coronavirus outbreak stoked investor concern about its impact on the already fragile economy. For more on these developments, let's cross over to London, where we have Arise business analyst Bode Oshoshami in our studios. Bode, welcome. Good afternoon. So this latest rate cuts coming so soon after the last one, did this surprise you?
Well, of course, it was a bit of a surprise. This was a 100 basis point rate cut coming on a Sunday, and of course, it was not scheduled either. But ordinarily, this would have been a good surprise for emerging markets, particularly countries like South Africa. But the circumstances are unusual because the lower rate of borrowing usually should be helpful for emerging economies. But instead, we saw, because of the atmosphere of panic, even as President Ramaphosa declared a national state of disaster, we saw South Africa's benchmark stock index plummet to the lowest that we've seen since 6 years. And I think the important thing is to go beyond the panic and then begin to see what the public health response system is going to be like, particularly how quickly the health infrastructure in the US and all over the world will be able to respond to the challenges. And this is not necessarily an issue of stimulus, because no matter how much you put into helping markets to stabilize, it has very little correlation with how things are done on the ground to actually help the practical situation. So I think the Fed was right to say that they are only playing one part in a very complex puzzle, in the sense that they are supporting stabilizing the liquidity in markets and putting some normalcy into the panic that we've seen on stocks and so on. Also, of course, making it easier for people to gain access to affordable credit. But there are still so many other parts to this, and we have to wait and see how particularly the fiscal side develops.
Okay, now President Trump was praising this move, says things are quote-unquote terrific. Is this going to work to restore the economy based on what, Trump's comments, if anything?
Well, we're very far from talking about restoration. This is a cushion, and what a cushion is supposed to do is to reduce the adverse impact, and that's all we know this will do. But but from where is it being reduced from is the question that is not quite as clear. That will depend, of course, on how further this deteriorates or the containment improves. So it's too early to talk about recovery or this being enough to restore the economy.
Okay, so how about Africa now? From an economic perspective, how is the continent responding to the crisis?
Well, Africa's economic growth could slow to about 1.8% this year from 3.2%. That's what we are hearing, even as global supply chains have been affected. Kenya, Ghana, Burundi, Gabon have halted entry of travelers from countries most affected by the disease, except, of course, they submit to quarantine upon arrival. And many areas, many countries like Seychelles, for example, which relies heavily on tourism, have been adversely impacted. But I think the important thing is Africa is just coming to terms with the issues. The most critical thing for Africa is the public health system, which many don't have a lot of confidence in. Although the Ebola was some learnings, we still don't know how Africa will be able to cope if we do see this deteriorating. But thankfully, so far, it does look like the rate at which the disease has been spreading in Africa has been low.
Okay, and you mentioned South Africa earlier with regards to the fall in the Johannesburg Stock Exchange. What about the rate decision in South Africa this week? Are we going to see an aggressive move, similar to what we saw in the U.S.?
Well, we are seeing a coordinated action all over the world, something we had never thought would be possible or we never thought was likely. Even the Bank of England governor, new governor, Andrew Bailey. He said they were also going to move towards easing strains in funding and avoiding a squeeze on credit. Bank of Japan, we know, maintained benchmark rates, but raised their annual bond buying. We also expect the PBOC, that's the Bank of China, to take another 1 or 2 rounds of reducing the required reserve ratio in the next 3 months. So we've seen the shocks to the financial systems being stabilized somewhat or helped by the actions that the central banks have been making. In Africa, South Africa is going to be a real test case on Thursday when we hear. We know that 35 of the country's 53 land ports have been shut from March 16, and already yields on government bonds have been climbing 10% for the first time in 4 years. The rand weakened almost 2% today. The Johannesburg Stock Exchange Index fell below 42,000 points for the first time since August 2013. So it's quite a serious situation, and there could be even further lockdowns and more restrictions. But the South African Reserve Bank, you know, they reduced the repo rate by 25 basis points to 6.25 in January, and of course we know what the situation of the recession is in South Africa. So it's expected that Lesetja Kyanyaho, that's the SARB governor, and his team are most likely going to cut interest rates. Maybe it's very hard to say, but I must add that consumers are looking more at broader public health response and also fiscal support in Africa rather than just monetary policy interventions. And I think fiscal support, just building more roads, for example, in rural areas and helping the more vulnerable populations survive is far more helpful than reducing rates in the African context where the systems are very weak. So we will see what will be said at the Thursday meeting of the South Africa Reserve Bank. But I think they're going to lean more to fiscal and other more direct measures rather than just monetary policy.
And really quickly about it, since we're talking about South Africa, they're already in recession. I believe Japan is in one. It's possible that it's being predicted Italy might also fall into recession this year. What about globally? The prediction for a global recession. JP Morgan has had their say. Goldman has had theirs. What's your take?
Well, the Fed chair, he actually said Q2 growth for the US and the world will be weak, but they are not making any predictions until June because the situation is extremely unstable. Goldman Sachs said that we would see a 5% contraction in the US economy. And
okay, sorry, hang on 1 second. They're ringing the opening bell on the New York Stock Exchange right now, so we're waiting to see exactly how the New York Stock Exchange is going to react to the S&P futures that we saw fall by 5%, hitting their limit down in yesterday's trading. We're going to see how the New York Stock Exchange reacts following, of course, this Fed cut that took place yesterday. So there's live pictures from the New York Stock Exchange. All eyes on the New York Stock Exchange to see exactly where trades go. Some of the predictions that the stock market is actually going to fall, but we're going to see as we take a look there. Arise News live pictures from the New York Stock Exchange following the Fed cut to between 0 and 0.25%. Okay, buddy, I understand you're still there. What are you expecting from the New York Stock Exchange? You have a crystal ball you can look into as to whether you think stocks will fall, or how do you think they'll trade?
Well, I think it will be quite mixed. It will be quite mixed. Already we saw the initial reaction was negative in terms of futures, but we saw futures climbing back up again. So it will be mixed. Particularly, all eyes will be on the fiscal side of it, where the new bill to coronavirus bill, how big it's going to be, how much of an aid it's going to be, and any other assurance that we get. So I think we're likely to see a mixed picture. It would struggle for a while. It may end on the positive positive side. But all eyes are on that coronavirus bill that's going to be passed, hopefully, by the Senate after it went through the lower house yesterday very quickly, and of course with a lot of bipartisan support. But there are, of course, the weaker sectors like the transportation sector, oil and gas sector. Those will continue to, of course, struggle given the issues.
You think the markets are going to be worried that there was no amount attached to the bill? Again, for our RISE viewers, we're live from the New York Stock Exchange. But yeah, but I think you even mentioned it earlier when we spoke. There's no figure tied to it. Is that going to be any worry based on the fact that there hasn't been any figure tied to the stimulus bill?
Well, my understanding is that the Republicans wanted to avoid having a bill that had no cap, so they wanted to put some kind of number or some kind of cap to it. But if we're talking about...
hang on one sec. We're getting the live images here. It looks like that the trigger has been hit again, and trading has actually stopped for 15 minutes. So they've breached the 7% threshold. We're at down 9.71%. 2,250 points down is what we're showing here with the Dow Jones. So, but it looks like things are heading down. Though they've trading just started and already they've hit the circuit breaker.
Well, I'm not surprised. I mean, given that if you look at European stocks, they went exactly the same way. But to your question, in terms of setting some kind of a price cap of some sort,
yes,
or expenditure cap on this bill, it's very difficult because you don't know how long this crisis is really going to go on for. And because of that, to put numbers to the support package has become more difficult. But I think we should still wait. It's still early days, but I'm still expecting a mixed outcome. By the time we get into full trading, we could see, particularly if we get some announcement on that bill, we could see some improvement in the stocks, but we have to keep our fingers crossed.
All right. Would you say that the U.S. is leading the way here? All eyes, I mean, we've just talked about the Johannesburg Stock Exchange falling. Not sure how world markets will react to that. But is the U.S. essentially leading the way with regards to how everybody else attacks with stimulus and all the packages the coronavirus?
Well, I think the situation is dry. It's a very serious situation. And this is not a U.S. issue remotely. The U.S. is just barely also trying to cope. All countries are trying to put some control or put some boundaries around the issue. It's not even clear what we are dealing with in terms of how long and the scale of the uncertainty. I think that's the kind of situation we have. The U.S., of course, they have deeper monetary pockets to play with, so they have been making the headlines. But like I said, for Africa, we have other issues. We have poverty. You have weak public health systems. So clearly the panic when Ramaphosa said there is a stage of emergency. This also coming at a time when there's also a recession. It's like a double whammy for negative for South Africa, and of course there's no surprise that we saw their stocks crashing. So to answer you, I don't think it's a U.S. thing. I think it's just the context is very harrowing, very tough, and we certainly wish this moves on and we see better days.
All right, once again, for our viewers, New York Stock Exchange has halted trading for 15 minutes. The market looked down by 9.7% there. 2,250 points down is where the New York Stock Exchange was showing trading there. But for African economies that are facing, you just talked about a double whammy. I want to know if you want to separate this or see it as one. The coronavirus on one hand and commodity prices falling on the other. I take Nigeria, for example, with the revenue challenges we're facing. Again, live pictures from the New York Stock Exchange where trading has been halted. But are we looking at two separate issues? Is it really a double whammy, or is it still just the coronavirus?
Well, I think they're all related issues. The challenge here is these economies were not particularly growing at a very strong rate, even where they were growing at all. So for you to now have another situation, of course, in the case of Nigeria, the impact of the 25% drop in the demand for oil by China alone essentially created issues. And of course, you know what happened at the OPEC meeting and Saudi's strategy to crash the prices. So all that has brought in additional pressure. So it's like some call it, is it the perfect storm? Is it the expression? Different things all coming together to hit already a trying context. So, I think that it's not just Africa. It's the US, it's the UK. You remember we were talking about the issues around Brexit. Did you ever hear anybody talk about Brexit in the last day or two? So many other things have now become even more compelling. So many other issues. So these are times when I don't think we've seen these types of issues before, when we see these factors all coming to play all at the same time, and then again with so much uncertainty. And I think that's the word investors hate the most, the word uncertainty. They can't deal with it, they can't plan, they can't project, they don't know how long. So they're just jittery, and of course, when you see all these jitters, you're going to see this bloodbath in prices of stocks.
Thank you so much, Bode Ososumi, Arise business analyst there in our London studios. We appreciate your insights. Again, we're going to take a break now. Global Business Report on Arise News. We'll be right back.
Actually have a... So this is a meeting. No matter how much they give you as a palliative. You're watching Arise News. We will set it on the grid. Now let's get to a video we will watch and it's not funny. Yes, people is live. Can I just enable the white list to be a candidate and former president? Response system.
I have 3 persons in the house. So, but when the church, when we had a loud explosion, and nothing after the explosion, there was thick smoke and fire followed.
The incident started around 8 o'clock in the morning. My men are the first responders here.
Opposite the pipeline, 2 school buildings, housing Bethlehem College, Girls College, sank inside, got 2 glass blocks, 2 stories.
You can see the building behind me right now, that brown building, that blue roofed building. It's called Bethlehem Girls Secondary School.
Yeah, not good at all, not good. It's not a very good incident.
Okay.
Our guys are on ground.
It's a massive damage. It's a massive damage.
It's a lot of damage.
And have to redeploy about 4 more appliances to this place.
As government, we will investigate the root cause and make it public.
this point in time, for us to be experiencing this in Lagos State, I can't hold my heart. Well, it won't be at this point we'll be discussing that. We need to.
Oh, God. Hello? Olushola, please. Hello?
Welcome back to the Global Business Report on Arise News. As I said earlier, Arise News is live at Amoadofin, the site of the gas explosion in Festac. We're going to be speaking with Adefemi Akinsanya, our Arise correspondent, who is now on the scene of the explosion for more on this. Adefemi, what's the latest updates from the explosion with rescue operatives and so on? What's the latest from what you can see?
The recovery operation is still ongoing. We've been able to see the process as it continues. So far, we know that at least 3 bodies are recovered from the rubble as the recovery process. Distance there, you'll definitely be able to see the extent of the wreckage. Homes have been damaged, but something else that has been damaged that is especially disturbing is the explosion that the impact of which destroyed Bethlehem Girls College here in the local community. Not only did it destroy the school building itself, the hostel staying. Now, though, to discuss this further is Dr. Isaac Tony Ogidi, who is the chairman of Bethlehem Girls College. For your time, sir. If you could cast your mind back to yesterday morning and to Sunday morning, what you heard, what your initial reaction was.
Thank you very much. Actually, I would say it was a Black Sunday for all of us here, the stakeholders, the parents, the teachers. The magnitude of disaster we had here yesterday. Iraq and all those Middle Eastern countries are nothing to be compared with what is on ground now. Bethlehem Girls College is on ground zero. The only structure standing is a hospital that surely must be brought down. That's an integrity issue now. Nobody can. It's tragedy. We never knew. I was here yesterday, 9 o'clock, about the and we saw about the children and for us, the mid three. One, because the children were all sick. And this one was falling from under the rock. That was my concern. When I was here with Charles on the station that air starting, I think I remember it's both cafeteria area at the front house section. Yeah, the board
Every child from this school has been evacuated.
Every child. For those with critical injuries, we are taken to the hospital and are receiving treatment. Those are around the neighborhood, they are giving first aid, and we are actually discharged. So we are following up on parents to find out about the well-being of their children here.
If we were to take a step away from the school and now from the staff, have all of the staff been accounted for? Point the afternoon after the
so something of
a very busy man, doctor. But if let us know what your next steps are in terms of what happens to these children. How soon are you thinking it will take for life to normal is now?
Okay.
All right, that's Arise correspondent Adefemi Akinsanya live on the scene. Amor-Dofin Festa from the scene of the gas explosion. They're reporting that about 3 more bodies have been recovered. We're back in New York now. It's not looking pretty, down 11% now. Trading has resumed, but we're showing that we're back live on the New York Stock Exchange, but we're still in negative territory. Again, for those that are wondering, the markets are responding to the Federal Reserve's rate cuts that took people by surprise yesterday. This was now the rate cut now 100 basis points. We're now between 0 and 0.25%. This is part of the response to the coronavirus epidemic that has been affecting the United States and pretty much every other country around the world. Other countries, of course, have been taking measures, but the markets have not been responding kindly, most of which because the markets feel that the situation is much more serious than is being let on by the U.S. government, and they feel that the rate cut yesterday was desperate, and that's the reason why the markets are responding. So again, trading has resumed after the rate cut yesterday. But remember, there's another threshold. The first threshold was 7%. Next one's about 13%. If that happens, there'll be another halt in trading for another 15 minutes. And then if we breach 20%, trading will be halted for the rest of the day. So live pictures there from the New York Stock Exchange, as you can see, down by 11.85%, 730 odd points. The Dow now at 20,000 points now, 20,439. Again, markets reacting to the Federal Reserve's rate cut in a bid to boost the markets as far as liquidity is concerned, reacting to the coronavirus. All right, now, unfortunately, more negative numbers from China this time. China's industrial output fell by much larger than expected, 13.5% in January through February from the same period of a year earlier. The reading was also the weakest since January of 1990 and a sharp reversal of the 6.9% growth in December. Retail sales tumbled in the first 2 months of the year, which is typically a boom season for consumption.
In January and February, the total value added of the industrial enterprises above the designated size dropped by 13.5% year-on-year. An analysis by types of ownership showed that in the first 2 months, the value added of the state-owned enterprises went down by 7.9% year-on-year. Shareholding enterprises down by 14.2%. Enterprises funded by foreign investors or investors from Hong Kong, Macau and Taiwan down by 21.4%, and private enterprises down by 20.2%. In January and February, the total retail sales of consumer goods reached 5,213 billion.
All right, now, still more news from trading on the New York Stock Exchange. The markets are still down, reacting, of course, to the Federal Reserve's rate cut from yesterday. Again, we're between 0 and 0.25% with regards to, of course, the Federal Reserve trying to boost markets in reaction to the coronavirus epidemic that's affecting the United States. The CDC, Center for Disease Control, has now said that gatherings of no more than 50 should be allowed. It looks like we're headed for, we could be headed for another halt, where the market there down by 11.76%. Again, if we breach that 13% threshold, we will be at another halt in trading for another 15 minutes. You can see there, down by 700 so points. The market's moving live as I speak. The Dow right now about 20,484 points. Again, for those watching, the markets are down because they are skittish about the reaction, the sudden reaction. And they are still live from New York now. And let's see now, we've got a response here. The central bank policy measures. This is breaking news now from the Central Bank of Nigeria. News breaking everywhere. Central Bank of Nigeria policy measures in response to the coronavirus outbreak. I'm just getting this live. It says, thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for being here. The Central Bank of Nigeria has invited you all here for today for 2 main reasons. First, we're here to provide you with our understanding of the preliminary effects of the outbreak of the coronavirus, which began in Wuhan, China in December 2019. Second, and more importantly, again, these are comments coming from the central bank. Second, and more importantly, we're here to announce our immediate policy responses, which reflect our understanding of the effects. As many Nigerians now realize, the coronavirus pandemic is having significant adverse consequences for both the global and the Nigerian economies. It has already led to unprecedented disruptions in global supply chains, sharp reduction in crude oil prices, turmoil in global stock exchange. You're seeing the New York Stock Exchange right now, and financial markets, and widespread cancellations in sporting, entertainment, and business events, lockdown of large swaths of movement of persons in many countries, and intercontinental travel restrictions across critical air routes in the world. Again, these are comments coming from the CBN. These outcomes have had serious adverse implications for key sectors, including but not limited to oil and gas, airlines, manufacturing, trade, and consumer markets. In furtherance of its financial stability mandate, the Central Bank of Nigeria is committed to providing support for affected households, businesses, regulated financial institutions, and other stakeholders in order to cushion the adverse economic impacts of the pandemic. Accordingly, the Central Bank hereby announces the following policy measures. 1. Extension of moratorium. All CBN intervention facilities are hereby granted a further moratorium of 1 year on all principal repayments effective March 1st, 2020. This means that any intervention loan currently under moratorium are hereby granted additional periods of 1 year. Accordingly, participating financial institutions are hereby directed to provide a new amortization schedules for all beneficiaries. So moratorium, of course, is a break in payments on loans. Secondly, interest rate reduction. Interest rates on all applicable CBN intervention facilities are hereby reduced from 9 to 5% per annum for 1 year effective March 1st, 2020. Again, interest rates on all applicable CBN intervention facilities are hereby reduced from 9 to 5% per annum for 1 year effective March 1st, 2020. 3. Creation of a 50 billion naira targeted credit facility. The CBN hereby establishes a facility through the Nursal Microfinance Bank for households and small and medium-sized enterprises that have been particularly hard hit by COVID-19, including but not limited to hoteliers, airline service providers, healthcare merchants, etc. So that is, again, a creation of a 50 billion targeted credit facility. These are more responses from the central bank. 4. Credit support for healthcare industry. To meet potential increase in demand for healthcare services and products, the CBN hereby opens for its intervention facilities loans to pharmaceuticals. Companies intending to expand or open their drug manufacturing plants in Nigeria, as well as to hospital and healthcare practitioners who intend to expand or build the health facilities to first-class centers. This in addition to growing the size of existing interventions to the agricultural and manufacturing sectors in Nigeria. 5. Regulatory forbearance. The CBN hereby grants all deposit money banks leave to consider temporary and time-limited restructuring of the tenor and loan terms for businesses and households most affected by the outbreak of COVID-19, particularly oil and gas, agriculture, and manufacturing. It's going to come as a relief to many. The CBN would also work closely with deposit money banks to ensure that the use of this forbearance is targeted, transparent, and temporary, whilst maintaining individual deposit money banks' financial strength and overall financial stability of the system. 6. Strengthening of the CBN LDR policy, that's the loan deposit ratio. In view of the success of the loan deposit ratio policy in growing credit to the economy and reducing interest rates, the CBN will further support industry funding levels to maintain deposit money banks' capacity to direct credit to individuals, households, and businesses. We will also consider additional incentives to encourage the extension of longer tenured credit facilities. Deposit money banks are encouraged to continue to build capital buffers in order to improve resilience of the sector. The CBN stands ready to provide liquidity backstops as when required in view of its role as banker to the federal government and lender of last resort. The CBN shall continue to monitor developments and will issue further updates as may be appropriate. Thank you for your attendance. Again, this is breaking news here on Arise News Global Business Report. Measures that have been taken by the Central Bank of Nigeria in response to the coronavirus epidemic. We're very, very happy to see this response from the Central Bank. We'll have more on this. That is the Global Business Report. Do stay tuned to Arise News. From all of us, thanks for your company. I'm Rosa Sodiri.
New Cif Eco Refill, 10 times concentrated cleaning power. Now you can reuse your spray bottle. Cif Eco Refill. Hello, beautiful.
Boost the life of your clothes with Comfort's Clothes Care Treatment. It nourishes and smooths each fibre, keeping colours bright, helping to keep your clothes like new. Comfort. Long live clothes.
He's Beagle. I'm Street. Beagle wants a little word of all you mums and dads out there. What's that? Yeah, of course, boss. He says we all insure our homes, our cars, our phones even. But we don't think about life insurance. It's barking mad. Beagle Street could pay off your mortgage if the worst ever happened. Leaving your better half with one less thing to worry about. Yeah, that's right. Beagle Street could give you 200 grand's worth of cover for less than the price of a family-sized pizza. With no mumbo-jumbo or medicals, you could get yourself covered in the time it takes to hard-boil an egg. Lovely. And if all that don't persuade you, look at his mince pies. Buy life insurance with Beagle Street, and you could get a gift card worth up to 100 quid with your policy. Call 0800 247 247 or go to beaglestreet.com.
Hello there and welcome. You're watching Arise News Now with me, Fadishola Shutin. We are coming to you from Nigeria's commercial capital, Lagos. Our top stories. Pipeline explosion rocks the city of Lagos. Suspected case of coronavirus report in Enugu State turns negative. And Kano State Public Complaints and Anti-Corruption Commission to invite the dethroned Emir Sanusi. Thank you for joining us this hour. It was a tragic sight in Lagos, Nigeria's capital, yesterday when a gas explosion rocked a part of the state in the early hours of the day, causing damage to properties and loss of many lives. Meanwhile, Babajide Sanwo-Olu, governor of Lagos State, has set up a 2 billion naira relief fund for victims of the explosion in the state. Arise correspondent Olushola John Jacobs has the story.
This was the sight the residents of Abule Ado community in Lagos State woke up to. The gory incident happened in the very early hour of Sunday.
We had a loud explosion. And nothing after the explosion, there was thick smoke and fire followed. So the thing affected the explosion. From what we saw, it is like what happens in the movie. When you see the cars and houses around the roof with the glasses. So people told me what the information I got. They said it's like a bomb exploded down there that affected the pipeline, because there is a diesel pipeline that went to Djibo from here. So it's affected the pipeline. Opposite the pipeline, two school buildings, housing Bethlehem College, Girls College, sank inside, got 2 glass blocks, 2-story. That place is level. What is left there now is only the classroom and the chapel.
It was a mix of sorrow, tears, and blood for the residents of this area, who said they heard a loud sound which shook their residents.
Around afternoon, we just heard a louder noise. So I was expecting maybe the building was falling down. The noise was too much. So when I all the ceiling was collapsed, both the fan, both the roofing of the upstairs that I'm staying.
Were you affected in any way?
I have an injury there because I was wearing busters when this thing happened. So when people were shouting, we see people have lost their life. Some of the houses we have been damaging.
The result of that blast, sound, explosion, or what the authorities would eventually confirm to us, is this colossal loss.
Operations are still ongoing. All the emergency responders of Lagos State are on the ground under the watch of Mr. Governor, Mr. Babajide Olushola Sanwo-Olu. The Honorable Commissioner of Special Duties is on the ground. We are able to curtail the fire. We are able to rescue some people. And however, we appeal to the people of Lagos State that they should remain cool, calm, and collected. We are on top of the challenges.
Set up Abule Ado SOBA Emergency Relief Fund. I have set that up, and it's a 2 billion naira relief fund. And the state government will immediately be putting 250 million naira in that fund. And overnight, I have gotten 3 banks to open accounts for that fund. And what are we trying to achieve? This is certainly beyond what the state government can undertake on its own. This is beyond what the government, be it at the national or state, can also overtake at its own. So I'm aware that some of my fellow governors have called, and I've received phone calls from the private sector. And so what this fund will do is to give everybody the opportunity to be part of it and to be able to donate into it.
Lagos State Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu speaking there. While a toddler simply identified as Favor has been rescued alive from the rubble of one of the collapsed buildings at the Abule Ado explosion. The 3-year-old girl was rescued from the rubble by operatives of the Red Cross Nigeria. And according to the chairman, Red Cross Nigeria, Adebowale Kolawole, she was recovered naked under the debris of a building. He said, quote, she was recovered under one of the collapsed buildings. Later, we found out that her mother and siblings were admitted in the hospital. The mother, who had head injury, was semi-conscious. This morning, when she asked for her daughter, the doctors told her that she is safe and with the Red Cross. And actually, that was what the doctors wanted her mother to be at rest psychologically, so it will not add to the pains that the mother is actually going through.
It's been a very hectic period for us, and you can see that volunteers are really doing great. They've been packing and bagging the dead bodies since yesterday, and they've been
taking the injured to the hospitals, both near hospitals and those that are not near. So, but we thank God, is what we have signed to do, to be of service to humanity, to save lives, and to help in times of disaster like this. And we have done that.
I see you with a baby. Why are you carrying this little baby here?
Oh, Favor is the name of the baby. We found her yesterday, the Red Cross, and she's been with us because the Red Cross actually took the mother, who happens to have a head injury, and the brother were recovered with injuries, and they were taken to different hospitals because the same hospital could not take the mother and son. And nobody came to look for this girl since yesterday.
So she's been with you since?
She's been with us, but as of last night, about 10 p.m., we had to inform the commissioner of police, who was on ground then, and he handed over to the DPO of a police station very close. And then the commissioner said, we have where we can keep her, if not, let the police take. And we have a motherless and abandoned baby home with us at Makoko. So we said we have, and we took her there overnight. We took care of her. We got her dressed, and she's fine. And by this morning, because of what we did yesterday, the efforts we did by locating our mother in the hospital, though the mother was half unconscious, she was using her body language to accept this girl, but she could not talk. And we asked her, Favor, is this your mom? Favor said yes. Later she said no because of the condition of the mother. But this morning, the doctors at the Navy Hospital confirmed to the mother when she was asking that Red Cross came yesterday, your daughter is safe, she's fine, and she's with the Red Cross. So very shortly, we will be visiting the mother in the hospital. Okay. It's part of our responsibility. We have to link up, and we have to trace, we have to give psychosocial support, we have to counsel. Apart from helping in disaster, we have a lot of work to do. And after this whole exercise, we'll still come around to talk to people affected. That's the social responsibility, and that's the psychosocial support that we do. We give things too. We give provisions, we give clothing to them.
So I can guess your team will remain here until this recovery operation is...
Yes.
Well, we're going live now to the site of the Abule Ado gas explosion, where our correspondent, Tokumbo Oyetunji, is standing by. Tokumbo, we just saw the clip of the rescue of Favor. Not a scratch, not a bruise on her. Most amazing. Tell us, more than 24 hours after, what's your evaluation of the work of the first responders?
Come a toast of almost everybody present. Shortly after we broke down.
The lucky girl who was able to escape.
Key girl who was able to escape.
We can be sure that more interest and attention from our way. So as regards the evaluation of the process, what we can report, apart from what was told you earlier in the day, that 3 bodies were recovered from the rubble of the Bethlehem Girls College, where we are standing right now. Operations are still ongoing. There has not been anything major, but was it having visitors coming into the arena? I think I can see one of them. I think a resident of this place before, who is generally CEO of the Yoruba land, is called Daniel Adam, the Yoruba Council of Yoruba land, who was a resident in this case, and I think he's paying a condolence of visit to the community. If my cameraman can stand around the arena where the visitors and the people are all gathered, still trying to witness the recovery of the that is going on. Okay, I learned the Ààrẹ Ọ̀nà Kakanfò is here with the chairman, the chairman of the Landlord Association of the Peace Community, having been a resident and a property owner in this area. So we learned that what dignitaries are coming in, including the Speaker of the House of Representatives, Femi Gbajabiamila, who learned elements from now, who will visit him after consulting with the President down there in Abuja. We learned his way down to Lagos to actually interact with people who have lost their ones and their property. It is unfortunate incident. I have with me one of the victims of the explosion, Mr. Prince Igoche. He lost property and he caused some personal injury as a result of that explosion here yesterday. Prince. Thank you very much for joining me on our last instance of defense from here. What do you want to tell me? How did you, where were you when the explosion happened? Were you there? Yeah, thank you very much. Actually, I was in my house. I was preparing for church with my family. Actually, I started very morning, Sunday morning around 8:30. I was coming from somewhere because I went to drop something elsewhere. So when I got to my house, I discovered that some people were running here and there. I said, what is happening? They said there is a kind of one place that is raising top. So I saw it and I still was inside my house to alert my family. So it's on the spot. Before we could come down, the thing just exploded. All my houses, all my property, everything. Look down there, you see, because there are more up to 200 buildings here affected. Both my brothers, my younger ones that own property here as well affected.
I have 3 persons in the house. So, but when the church, when we had a loud explosion, and nothing after the explosion, there was thick smoke. Fire followed.
Incident started around 8 o'clock in the morning. My men are the first responders here.
Opposite the pipeline, 2 buildings, 2 school buildings, housing Bethlehem College, Girls College, sank inside, got 2 glass blocks, 2 stories.
You can see the building behind me right now. That brown building, that blue roof building. It's called Bethlehem Girls Secondary School.
Yeah, not good at all. Not good. Not good. It's not a very good incident.
Okay.
Our guys are on ground.
It's a massive damage. It's a massive damage.
It's a lot of damage.
And have to deploy about 4 more appliances to this place.
As government, we will investigate the root cause and make it public.
At this point in time, for us to be experiencing this in Lagos State, I can't hold my heart. Well, it won't be at this point we'll be discussing that. We need to.
Oh God. Hello. Olushola, please.
Hello.
Olushola, please stay safe. As much as we want to cover this, disaster in Lagos this morning, as much as possible, we hope that you can stay safe.
Updates there from our correspondent Tokumbo Oyetunji on the Abule Ado gas explosion. A 2 billion naira relief fund has been set up by Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu. Other reports now. The Nigerian Health Authorities has revealed that the suspected case of coronavirus reported in Enugu State, southeast of the country, is negative. In a short statement by the Permanent Secretary, Enugu State Ministry of Health, Dr. Ifeanyi Agujiobi, the result was also corroborated by the Nigerian Center for Disease Control, the NCDC. The suspected case, a female, was reportedly in the United Kingdom in the last 5 months, but came to Enugu through Owerri on March the 11th to visit her son. Earlier, the Minister of State for Health, Dr. Olorunimbe Mamora, briefed journalists on COVID-19.
Despite the fact that we have not recorded a confirmed COVID-19 case in the last 1 week in Nigeria, it is important to remember that we are still at high risk like other countries. You know that at the last count, we have well over 144 countries and territories afflicted, so to speak, with COVID-19. So you can understand why the WHO has labeled it pandemic. We continue to monitor returning travelers that fit our case definition and improve our surveillance, detection, and risk communication. Now, what we try to do, probably most importantly, is to give you the right information appropriately communicated and efficiently managed. That is very key in the management of this pandemic. And that's why we all need to work together so that together we can defeat COVID-19. Following the declaration of a pandemic and increasing spread in countries, we carried out a review of our case definition. We have added 3 new countries to the existing list of 5 high-risk countries with widespread community transmission. These countries are France, Germany, and Spain. Therefore, 8 countries are in our priority list. And these are China, Japan, Iran, Italy, Republic of Korea, France, and Germany. Travelers from these 8 countries will undertake secondary screening at the point of entry. They are also advised to self-isolate for 14 days on entry. Between the 7th of January and 15th of March, that was yesterday,